Death is always knocking at my door. Every single day of my life, I have thought about my death. I thought about the time that I've died and the time that I will die again. And I know now that it's not normal for someone to think about their death every day and not be suicidal. But death has always been there. Death leaves a mark. Most people are fascinated with what potentially happens after death. We're fascinated with stories of people who have died and come back. But I have died and come back. Shortly after I was born, I was given a medication, and it caused me to flatline. My doctor, fortunately, refused to give up on me, and a little after 4.5 minutes brought me back. But it brought me back with a mark. And death keeps brushing up against me. When I was a small child, I remember in first grade, I had no friends. I was socially awkward. My intellectual development was very delayed. But I made friends with one boy. He had no friends because he was ill. And I knew he wasn't going to be around too long. I didn't know why I knew or how I knew or what I knew. I just knew something about him was different than the rest of the kids. And some time went by and we became good friends. But I felt him slipping away. And one day, my parents are arguing about should I go to a funeral or not. And my father, in all his faults, told my mother that I was going to go and he was going to take me. And he didn't give a shit what she thought. And that was the right choice. And so I saw my first dead body. We were the only white people in the entire church. But I was his only friend. And he was my only friend. It was weird to see him gone, but he was still there. It was so bizarre to walk up to the casket and see what remained, but somehow his essence, what was him, wasn't even there. It was just something that resembled him. And throughout life, death has always been there. There was a time when I myself found myself homeless, and it was too much to bear. With being autistic and being on the streets, even I tried to commit suicide. But I didn't succeed. And I wasn't meant to succeed. If I was meant to go, I would have gone as a child, as an infant. And then throughout life, I occasionally find myself in situations where I just know someone's going to die before they die. I just know. And how do you not say anything? I can't exactly tell them, hey, you'll be dead in a week, or you'll be dead in 6 months, or in 10 years. Why would you ruin someone's rest of their life with the news? They will either think you're crazy, or it could devastate them. And because of that, I usually don't say anything to that person. When Dawn came to us, I knew she wasn't going to live for too long. I knew when she moved out to her apartment, she would be dead within months. And to have to officiate her funeral, I even knew that no one would show up to her funeral other than the people at the shelter and the volunteers for the shelter. But still, I gave her a funeral anyway, because she deserved it. And then when James came to us, James and his wife, I knew when I picked him up at the bus stop to take him to the shelter that he wasn't long for this world. Days later, I was taking him to the hospital, and I looked in the rearview mirror, and I saw him dead there in my chair, in the rear seat. I blinked my eyes and shook my head, and he was alive again, and I saw it a few more times. I knew when I dropped him off at the hospital, he would never leave the hospital, except for in a body bag. And sure enough, that's what happened. Death leaves a mark. And for those of us that have come back, it leaves a mark so deep that we just can't escape it. It affects our everyday existence. I know approximately when my brother will die. I know approximately when my wife is going to die. I know approximately when Dan is going to die, and who will die, in what order. And it brings me great sadness to watch that time ticking by. But how do you say anything? How do you tell them how much time they have left? You can't. It's impossible. And it's not fair. It wouldn't be fair to tell someone if they're not asking. To mourn the loss of those you love before they die, before they've even gone. It is torture, but it is also a blessing, because it allows me to prepare myself emotionally and physically for when it comes. I can't know the death of people I haven't met, except for one, only one. When I was working at Denny's, I was also working at IHOP that year. And there was a customer. And I was picking up the dishes off his table. He wanted me to take them. He was done eating, but he wasn't finished with his orange juice. And I accidentally spilt it. And when I went to go clean it up, fortunately it didn't get on him, but I accidentally touched his hand. I touched his pinky, and in that moment I downloaded his entire life His whole life and childhood and marriage and children and life yet to be lived flashed before my eyes. And he felt it. He felt something happen. And he said, "What did you do?" I looked at him and I lied. I said, "I didn't do anything. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to touch you when I was cleaning up the orange juice." But he knew. He knew that I had saw him, that I had truly saw him. Even to the day of his death, which has not happened yet. I've never seen that man since. But I don't have to, because I live with him. His whole existence is in my head, including his entire future. I know right now he lives in New York. I can't tell you his address, but I know he's there. Death leaves a mark. And for those of us it's touched and we survived and we were brought back, it marks us so bad. Which makes it hard to run the shelter, because so many people that come to the homeless shelter lack health care. They're really bad off in their health. And so many of them are going to die young because of their health care, the lack of it. I only can see the death of the people I get connected to. And I connect to the people that live at the shelter, because I live at the shelter. When you live with someone for 6 months, a year and a half, you connect with them. They become like your friends. They become like family. There's no emotional dissonance. When you live at the shelter, you run. When my grandmother passed away, I knew she was going to die. And I rode Greyhound all the way to Maine to see my grandmother. And when she saw me, she did not see me. She saw my father. And I didn't have the heart to tell her that I was her grandson. Instead, I was what she needed me to be. I was my father for her. She told me, she said, "Randy, I've been holding on. I've been waiting for you. I knew you would come see me." But my father wasn't actually going to go see her. He didn't want to remember her that way. Such a selfish thing. So instead of her getting to see her grandson, she saw her son. And I pretended to be him because it's what she needed. Her Alzheimer's was so bad, she really didn't know very much of what was happening to her. I spent 3 days visiting with Grammy, and then I went home. I got on a Greyhound and I came all the way back, and I went back to work. I was working at the Hilton high-rise downtown of Austin, and I felt her go from over 2,000 miles away. I felt the breath of her lungs leave her. I felt her leave her body. And minutes later, probably about 15 minutes go by, and I'm still sitting in the linen closet, crying, trying to catch my breath. And my mother calls, and she said, Grammy's gone. And I said, I know. I felt her go. In a way, my life has always been partially one foot in the grave and one foot into real life. Every day is a blessing. Every day is a gift. Every day is borrowed time. And those people that know me well know that most of what I do in this life isn't for me. Because my life was over when I died. Every extra minute is for something else. But most days I try not to think about it. Most days I try not to focus on it. But for one person in particular that I'm very close to, their time is ticking up very quick. They won't even be here for another year. They probably have another 6 months to go. And because of it, I find myself thinking about my connection to death far more than I normally do. And this one's going to hurt a lot when this one goes. But I'm powerless to stop it. But at least I get the gift of knowing about when it's going to happen. When Puddin died, I knew 3 months before that she was going to die. And I told Dan, you need to go visit her. You need to visit her before it's too late. And he's like, yeah, I know, but I'm real busy right now. And I was like, make time. Reschedule stuff. Make it happen. And he didn't. And she passed. And a part of me wants to go visit the person that's going to be passing. But our lives have not been connected for so long in our real day-to-day life that I don't know how to bridge the gap. I don't know how to make that phone call or show up at that house. But it's coming quick. But it's past due. And at least he got the amount of time he got. Considering he was supposed to have died a long time ago. But he was too stubborn to go. But no amount of stubbornness will keep him from going this time. Death leaves a mark. Death leaves a mark.